Fractions, Part 4. In today's lesson, students will learn how to multiply fractions. How to do what? Very good. So there are 3 simple steps to multiplying fractions. So we're going to go ahead and write when multiplying fractions. Okay. First, you want to multiply the top of the fraction. So what do you call that? Say fraction. Numerator top, denominator bottom. Okay, so what's the top of the fraction called? It's called the numerator, right? The numerator. That's the number at the top. So multiply across the top, multiply the numerators. Okay, then you want to, step 2, what do you think? Multiply the bottom. The bottom numbers are called the, what are they called? The denominators. Good. Okay, now your last step, which you're going to use your multiplications chart for, is to simplify. Simplify is another word for divide the numerator and the denominator by the same number to get to lowest terms. So you're making the fraction look smaller, although it really is the same size. Okay, so I'm going to show you a little example. 3/4 times 1/2. You see it? 3/4 times 1/2. Now, what I want to do, I'm going to move this down. Okay. What I want to do is show you conceptually the concept of why when you multiply fractions, you just multiply across. Okay, you multiply across. You multiply where? Across. So watch. Let me draw it. Okay, friends. So 3/4. We normally draw 3/4, right, just like in the last example, as a pizza. Well, you know, you can also draw it as a rectangle. Did you know that? Okay, look. Here's 3/4. I'm drawing a rectangle. Here's a rectangle. I'm going to cut it in how many pieces? How many pieces? I'm going to cut it into 4, right? 1, 2, 3. I make 3 cuts and I get 4 pieces. See how that works? That's 3/4. Okay, so if I'm talking about 3/4, well, how many pieces will I shade? What is the numerator? The numerator is, what is it? It's 3, right? Let me make this in red so you can see it. Okay, 3/4. Here we go. 1, 2, 3. Okay, my friends. Now, 3/4 times 1/2 is saying, what is half? If I cut this in half, if I cut it in half, how many pieces now are we talking about? And how many pieces are shaded, right? So if I cut it in half, let me cut it in half. Here we go. Let me cut it in half in purple. Boom. Okay, see what I did? You see what I did? See what I did? Okay. So it's asking to take half of this picture, and that's going to be the answer. Half of this picture. So I cut it in half. If I cut it in half, my friends, and now how many pieces is the rectangle cut into? How many pieces is it cut into? Let's go ahead and count. Let's count. Let's count. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. Okay, so it's cut into how many pieces? 8 pieces total, right? So that would be the denominator. Now the numerator is a little tricky, okay? If you follow the algorithm, which are the steps, it just says multiply the numerators, right? Well, 3 times 1 is 3. Well, what is that talking about? It is saying, what is half of 3/4, which means if you cover up half the picture now, you know it's cut into 8ths, but if you cover up half the picture, you see it? How many pieces are left? If you cover up half, how many pieces up here? Count with me. 1, 2, 3. So that is why the answer is Let me make it in red so you can see the difference between the numerator and the denominator. That is why the answer is in fact 3/8, because half of 3/4 is 3/8. Okay, go ahead and get that down. Okay, so let's do our first example. Pretty simple, right? We have 1/9 times 3/5. So we know if we're multiplying fractions, say multiplying fractions, multiply across. Say multiply across. So you're going to multiply the top numbers and then you're going to multiply the bottom numbers. So 1 times 3 is, what's 1 times 3? 1 times 3 is 3. Very good. All right. And what about 9 times 5? What is 9 times 5? 9 times 5 is 45. Okay? Now, there's a special way that you simplify these problems. Now, the answer is 3/45, right? But that is not in simplest terms, okay? So there's a special way that you multiply these problems. So when you simplify, you're going to go ahead and take the fraction again, the fractions themselves, which is 1/9 times 3/5. Okay. Now we're used to cross multiplying, right? I'm going to go ahead and change the color of the numbers that are across so you can see what I'm talking about. Okay, so we have 1/9 and we have 3/5. Okay, my friends. Now, to simplify, you do what is called cross canceling. So you look at the numbers across. Okay, could you simplify or divide 5 and 1 by anything? Could you do that? Okay, what about 9 and 3? What could you divide by? What could you divide by? Could you divide by 3? Yes. So what I do is I actually cross out this 3 and I say 3 divided by 3 is 1. See what I did? I divided by 3. Okay, divided by 3. And now I'm going to cross this out and I'm going to say 9 divided by 3. What is 9 divided by 3? Because I'm dividing both by 3. It is 3. See? So my new answer then, I can rewrite these fractions as 1/3 times 1/5. See? All I did was I divided. If I cross, instead of cross multiplying, you're actually cross dividing. See, you cross divide. Yeah? Okay, so now you can multiply it out. 1 times 1 is 1. And what is 3 times 5? 3 times 5 is 15. So simplify, the answer is 1/15. Go ahead and write that down. Okay, so let's go ahead and solve this problem. Now, if you were to multiply out these fractions, you would first multiply across the top. What is 4 times 5? 4 times 5 is 20. Very good. And then you would multiply the bottom or multiply the denominators. What is 9 times 6? Remember 9 times 6? 9, 18, 27, 36, 45, 54. So it is what? It is 54. Okay. Now this fraction, because they are both even numbers, look at 20. Is 20 an even number? Okay, even numbers end in 0, 2, 4, 6, or 8. And 54 is also an even number, but we would have to do some long division here. Okay, we'd have to multiply by 2, right? Okay, there's another way to do this. And it is called cross divide. It's called what? Cross divide. And that's another word for simplify, okay? So when we cross divide, we're going to go ahead and write the fractions again. You just rewrite the fractions. You rewrite the fractions as 4/9 times 5/6. Okay. Now I'm going to look at the numbers that I could divide. Let's look this way. And let me change these colors so that you know you have 4 and 6. Look. Okay. First look at 9 and 5. Okay. Could you divide any number by both 9 and 5? Could you do that? No, because this is even and this is odd. Now look at 6 and 4. 6 and 4. What could you multiply, what could you divide both 6 and 4 by? You could divide by what? Divide by, what do you think? You could divide by 2, right? Okay. So I'm going to do this. I'm going to say, well, 6, now I'm writing, you can divide by 2, okay? Right here. You can divide by 2 across. Okay? You can divide by 2. Well, now, 6 divided by 2 is, it is 3. And what about 4 divided by 2? 4 divided by 2 is 2. Very good. Now I'm going to rewrite these fractions as 2/9 times 5, what? 5, what's this new number here? It's 5/3, okay? And even though 5 is bigger than 3, this is called an improper fraction. We can still work with it. Now let's multiply again. We have 2 times 5 is, what's the numerator? What's the numerator? 2 times 5 is 10, right? And what's the denominator? 9 times 3 is, 9 times 3? 27. So simplify, the answer is 10/27. Go ahead and write that down. Okay, let's do the last example. Write it down. It says 4/5 times multiplied by 5/9. Okay, so we're just going to multiply across the top, multiply the numerators there in red. What is 4 times 5? 4 times 5 is, 4 times 5 is 20, just like in the last example. What about 5 times 9? What is 5 times 9? 5 times 9 is, what is it? It is 45. Okay. Now, is this fraction in simplest form? Is it simplest form? Can you divide 20 and 45 by the same number to get a lower fraction? Yes, you can. Now, which number is that? Could you divide 20 and 45 by 2? Could you divide by 2? Could you divide 45 by 2? No. So, what about 5? Could you divide by 5? Okay, the rules for divisibility is that you can actually divide by 5 with any number that ends in 0 or 5. Does this end in 0? Yes. Does this end in 5? Yes. That means they're both multiples of 5. So when you take a look at the multiplication chart, if you were trying to simplify using the chart like we learned last week, okay, you know you could divide by 5. So let's look in column 5. You see column 5? Okay. So column 5, I said, okay, where is 20 over 45? 20 over 45 is right here, right? So if you move over to the left, you get that the simplified fraction will be 4 over 9. It'll be what? 4 over 9. Now there's another way to do this besides using the multiplication chart, okay? The other way to do this is actually to cross divide. To do what? Cross divide. And how do you cross divide, Ms. Coe? How do you do that? Well, you have to rewrite the fractions as 4/5 times 5/9. When you look across, okay, I'm going to change the color so you can see which numbers are going to cross divide. And what number does it end up being? It ends up being the number 5. So that means you could divide by 5, right? 5 divided by 5. You know 5 divided by 5, right? What is 5 divided by 5? Okay, you're going to actually do it this way. I'll put the division over here. Okay, you're dividing by 5. What is 5 divided by 5? Any number divided by itself is 1. And 5 divided by 5 is 1. Okay? Now you can rewrite the fractions. I'll write them down here as 4 over 1, which just means 4, right? Times 1 over 9. And then multiply across. What is 4 times 1? 4 times 1 is 4. And what is 1 times 9? 1 times 9 is 9. Okay? So the answer, just like how we simplified on the multiplication chart, is 4/9. Go ahead and write that down.